Now we'll move on to Denise.
Hi everyone, my name is Denise Colella. I'm the president with Maxifier. We're a premium publisher advertising optimization tool based out of New York, so thanks for coming today. We've been hearing a lot about audience and community. I think it was Maury yesterday that said that while we used to focus on context, now we're focusing on community. I'd like to turn the table a little bit and not talk about community in how it relates to the content of your publications, but instead how it relates to advertising. So how did we get here when it comes to digital advertising? To give you a little history lesson, if you go back 1996 or so, we were using cookies on all of the websites, right, on your computers. And by using those cookies, we would pick up information on the user, and that would allow the ad server, many of you are probably familiar with DoubleClick, or maybe you used Atlas, maybe now you have OAS ad tech, but those ad servers would then deliver the ads on the page to the right person at the right time. We've come a long way. It's not just the data that is in the ad server anymore that drives this advertising. I hear a lot about data-driven content. It's time to do data-driven advertising. When we saw the presentation on the Top Gear web issue yesterday, what was amazing was that the majority of their readers actually enjoyed advertising and considered it as context. That's fantastic. And we can continue to bring our advertisers in and justify the cost and keep that money coming into the publishers by creating advertising and targeting advertising that is more suited to the users or to the community. So while we were crawling with the ad servers, we got up and started to walk with some of the other tools that were available. DMPs, data management platforms, audience management platforms, data co-ops, and data exchanges. Some of the names of companies you may be familiar with are Audience Science, BlueKai, Acxiom announced an Audience OS yesterday at Adweek in New York. And now that we've walked, it's time to run. It's time to now take that data, create data-driven advertising, and optimize that advertising towards your clients and towards your end communities. So what makes up these audiences? Some of these data points you might be familiar with: geographic, offline data you've been using for years, transactional data, especially for the publications that are in the room that have their own transactions happening with your own branded marketplaces. Viewability, are people actually seeing the ads? Sometimes there are ads on the page, but viewers may not even be able to see them, so do they count? What are your community searching for? What keywords are they searching? And then also, what is their browsing behavior? How long are they spending on a site? What areas are they going to most? These are all powerful data points that we have access to now to make advertising more relevant, more enjoyable, and then also more profitable. So what do you do with all this data? I always say to my clients, you can spend all the money in the world in data, and you can create all different data stores, but if you're not using the data appropriately or at all, it has zero value. I consider data to be like sneakers or running shoes. You can go out and buy the most expensive pair of technology-driven running shoes, but if they sit on the floor next to your bed and you never go for a jog, it doesn't help your health. It's the same with data. If you don't use it, it's not going to help your advertising. And action needs to be ongoing. It used to be that we would set a campaign live and just forget about it. That campaign would deliver out to the users, they would buy it by the 1,000 impressions, and that would be it. But the reality is tools are available nowadays. Data is available, not just at the beginning of a campaign, but throughout to the end and beyond, that we can continue to optimize that campaign in real time. When I spoke with a lot of my publishers, what we realized was that for brand campaigns, most of these campaigns need to be optimized at a minimum of 9 times on average per campaign. And for performance campaigns, campaigns that were driving towards some kind of click or transaction, they needed to be optimized at least 11 times per campaign on average. So those are great numbers, but the challenge that we see as publishers is that most of the publishers can only actually optimize campaigns, maybe 10 to 20% of their campaigns in total, because there is all this data and they're trying to do it manually. So I encourage you all to look at the different tools that are available to help automate this optimization process so that you can serve all your advertisers equally and make sure that you're using the data in a way that's appropriate for their campaigns. And while the click is irrelevant, or becoming so, we hope, it is still the currency. That is what publishers are looking for. There's a couple of studies here, and I know you'll all be getting the presentations that you can look at over the past 4 years that talks about what everyone's looking for in click metrics. It's easy to measure, and it's understandable, and it's consistent. But data is actually evolving, and we're starting to see a lot more deep metrics, deep data that we can get into to help optimize those campaigns. So if you look on the left of this slide, what you'll see with the higher bars are the traditional metrics that brand marketers were looking for. Brand marketers aren't as interested in clicks because nobody buys a Coca-Cola online or a Louis Vuitton purse. And I know those are two different ends of the brand spectrum. So they were looking more for brand awareness, usually post-campaign studies or even purchase intent, that sort of data. But what's the data that they're looking for now? Now that they're moving these campaigns and some of their budget, admittedly not enough, online, they're looking for things like view through, interaction rate, is the ad in view? And these metrics are becoming standardized through the IAB. So the IAB has come out with 4 standardized core metrics for brand advertising. The first is viewability. Was the ad in view of the user? So if the ad's at the bottom of the page and someone doesn't scroll, it's not viewable. In view time, how long was it in view? Did they scroll quickly down and back up so they may not have noticed it? Did the user spend meaningful time interacting with the ad? If you have an ad, maybe it has a toggle switch or some sort of game inside. Did somebody interact with that ad? Did they click on it? Did they move something around? And for how long? How long did they interact with that ad? Those 4 are the IAB core metrics on brand engagement. There are other metrics, however, and depending on which system you use to get these metrics, they have plenty more. But the ones that we see more often used are as follows. Hover rate. There have been studies done that show when people are actually looking at an ad, they'll mouse over it. They won't even notice that they're doing, but they'll mouse over it. Next time you look at an ad, take notice because you're probably doing it. How long did they hover over the ad? How long did they dwell on the page with the ad? And then what was the level of attention quality? So did they go from hovering to then clicking or moving something around in the ad? We have all of these rich media and interactive ads available now, so it's only logical that tools to measure that and utilize that will develop. At Maxifier, we actually we did a case study with Forbes, who's one of our great clients. They are one of the leading users of these type of brand engagement data, and they're really leading the charge, and I couldn't agree more with what they're doing with their platform, as I heard in the last session. For a run-of-site rectangle, before they optimized it using these brand engagement data, they were seeing about just over 4%, they were seeing 4% interaction rates. But once they optimized it using that interaction data from a company called Moat, they actually saw 25% higher interactivity rate. That's amazing, right? And this was done with relatively no effort. The data comes in, it's processed by a system, and the campaign is optimized. It goes out to the audience that's more likely to interact with this ad. For a run-a-site lifestyle channel rectangle, before optimization, they were seeing about 65% or so of viewable ads, meaning the ad was on a position on the page where the viewer could actually see it. By optimizing it, they were able to see a 16% increase in viewable impressions. So you might be thinking, why is this important? It's important for 2 reasons. For trailblazers like Forbes, they're actually selling against viewability metrics. They're guaranteeing that a certain percent of the ads will be viewable. For others that aren't quite so innovative, they're being forced to deliver viewability. One of the CEOs I spoke to at a publisher just a few months ago was telling me of the 10 IOs he'd seen in the past week, 8 of them demanded they hit a certain viewability metric, and it was roughly 80 to 85%. So if your advertisers are not asking for this now, they will. It's important that you understand the different kind of metrics that are evolving and how you can perform to those metrics and make sure you're delivering on your advertisers' expectations. And frankly, I don't say this all to scare you, I say this to excite you, because the opportunity is enormous. We heard this yesterday. When you look at brand advertising online, the amount that's being spent online is completely off kilter with the amount of time we are all spending online, that our communities and audiences are spending online. We saw some of these metrics yesterday. If you look at performance advertisers, they got in early on this whole internet advertising thing. And right now, performance advertisers, they roughly split their spend between online and offline. But the brand side, wow, this is where we really have to excite these advertisers and bring the dollars over. They're spending $328 billion globally offline. Online, a mere $20 billion. There's plenty more out there for you to have. And more importantly, these numbers aren't just about online or using your computer at work. It's all about mobile. It's all about tablets, phablets, whatever word we want to call them today, tomorrow. All of this data is available. It's available for online display, tablet display, mobile display, and it's optimizable within the channels and across channels as well. So I encourage all of you to go out and embrace this opportunity. Get access to the data, but more importantly, figure out how to use it. How do you use it to understand your communities? And more importantly, how do you optimize with the data to create data-driven advertising that becomes a more enjoyable part of the user experience? Thank you.